This video is an extremely basic introduction to calculus, specifically limits. The definition of a limit is a y value that a function approaches as x approaches a specific x value. Here's a notation. As the limit as x approaches c of f of x is equal to L, where L is the y value and c is the so-called specified x value. Now, for a limit to exist as x approaches a c value, the one-sided limits must be equal to each other. This means that the limit as x approaches c of f of x from the positive side should be equivalent to the limit as x approaches c from the negative side of f of x, which we'll say is equivalent to L, which is the y value. And this converse relationship also applies. That means that if we know that the limit of f of x as x approaches a c value is equivalent to L, then we can basically say that the one-sided limits are equal to each other as well, and vice versa. Let's say we have to determine each of the following limits given these few problems. So we can see that the limit of f of x as x approaches -4. Well, let's look as x approaches -4 on the graph. We can see that f of x, the y value, is approaching 1. So the answer is 1. And it's approaching 1 from both the left and the right side of f of x. Now we'll look as the limit of f of x as x approaches 5. Well, if you look at x equals 5, you can see from the left-hand side, it's approaching a negative y value. And from the right-hand side, it's approaching a positive value. Well, that's weird. As we can see, from the left and right-handed side, the one-sided limits are not equal to each other. Therefore, this limit does not exist, DNE. Now, the limit of f of x as x approaches 5 from the negative side, however, we'll see from the left side, it's approaching -1. Now you can apply the same concept as the limit of f of x as x approaches 5 from the positive side. We're going to look at the graph when x approaches 5 from the right-hand side, which is 2. Now notice how this limit and the previous limit are different, where one is -1 and the other is 2. And of course, we can conclude from there that the limit of f of x as x approaches 5 does not exist because the one-sided limits are not equal to each other. All right, now we're going to look at the limit of f of x as x approaches 3. Again, that is not approaching a specified y value. It looks like it's approaching -infinity, which we'll discuss later, but a viable answer is also saying that it does not exist because it's not approaching a y value. Now, finally, the limit of f of x as x approaches 2. Well, first, you might think that it does not exist because there seems to be a hole at f of 2. But an important thing that we'll talk about later on is that whether or not the function is actually defined at that c value, it doesn't affect whether or not the limit exists. Remember, the limit is just what the f of x approaches as x approaches 2. It's approaching 1, and even though it's not defined at f of 2 is not defined, it's still approaching 1. All right, we're going to be discussing that later on. I hope this video helped. Comment down below any other math topics you want me to review. Thank you.